Hello, everybody. A very, very warm welcome to all of you from GMATWhiz. Today, we are going to look at how to develop the two most important skills that are required to solve CR questions successfully on the GMAT exam. And those two skills are the skills to infer, draw inferences, and the skill to spot assumptions. So once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. I can see a lot of you are already there. My name is Sunita, and I'm going to lead you through this session. So let me set the agenda straight away. Just give me a moment. And do let me know if you guys can hear me clearly. Am I loud and clear to all of you? Please let me know that in the chat box. If you guys can hear me clearly and see the presentation clearly, do let me know that. So here's the agenda. Let me set this straight away. As I've already said, my name is Sunita and I will be leading you through this session. I love teaching. I love listening to students, understanding their problems and finding solutions to those specific problems. I've got tons of teaching experience and I've also curated the entire GMATWhiz Prep course. That was about me. What are we going to learn today? So we are going to first of all learn how to draw inferences while reading the stimulus itself. Oftentimes we think that the actual inference or the actual, assumptions take place once we have finished reading the stimulus. Inferences at least take place as you are reading. You're not just waiting to complete reading the sentences and then draw inferences. So I'm going to show you that. How to spot assumptions while reading the stimulus, that is also what we're going to discuss today. And through all of this, we're going to solve a couple of inference and a couple of assumption questions. So let's get started. Let me see if I have some. Hello, Jahnavi. Hello, Louis. Hello, Mayank. Good to hear from you. Thank you. Yes, Mayank, namaste. So let's set the ball rolling without any more delay. So the first thing is we need to understand how to analyze the stimulus correctly, okay? And here's the first question that I want you to attempt, all right? You attempt it your way, and then I'm going to show you how it should have been attempted, all right? How to read the stimulus in the best possible manner so that you're able to eliminate answer choices properly as well. I am starting with a not so very difficult question. Again, remember, the purpose is not just to solve this question, but the purpose is to understand how to solve it best so that you don't take too much time. With the Focus Edition knocking at our doors, you don't have more than 2 minutes to solve any CR question on the Focus Edition. And of course, on the classic version, it is the same as well. So let's get started. And I hope those of you listening to this, watching this, benefit from today's webinar. I'm going to mute myself while you give this question a shot. One small request, please do not post your answers until I ask you to do so. Your time starts now. You have 2 minutes, and let me mute myself. Let me once again remind all of you solving this question out there, hold on to your answers a little bit more. I'm going to ask you I'm going to tell you when to post it. And remember, the purpose is not to see whether you get this question correct, but the purpose is to see how to analyze stimulus perfectly. All right. You can start posting your answers. Those of you who have been able to solve this. I can already see Burundi King's and Janvi's answer. So King has chosen A, Janvi has chosen B, Louis believes it's A. Yes, let me have a few more answers. Your answers encourage me to um, interact more. So please help me here. And if you are liking this webinar, do hit the like button. All right, so Mayank, non-existent, Smriti, Nikhil, Louis, Durga, everyone here, almost everyone has chosen A as the correct answer. So as I said already earlier, that the point is not to see what's the correct answer, but the point is to see, did I read the stimulus correctly? Was I able to infer these things? All right. And then I'm going to give you a question which is really going to challenge your gray cells here. Okay, get started to understand how to analyze this in the best possible way. Okay. So that you can apply it to really hard questions. So let me stop my camera so that all the attention is on the question. And here I go with my explanation. So per GMATWhiz methodology, all right, there are two steps to solve inference questions, okay? The first step is to analyze stimulus in such a way that you are already drawing inferences as you move down the line, all right? So that by the time you're done with reading the stimulus, you're ready with, full understanding of that paragraph. And the next step is answer choice elimination, which is the ACE. So notice how I read the stimulus, okay? Now, the first sentence starts from here till here, but I'm not going to read that full line in one breath. I'm going to break it down in small chunks and read so that I don't miss any information, okay? For large farms to be as productive as they can be, and I'll stop here and I'll say, okay, what does this sentence mean? What does this segment of the sentence mean? Here we are talking about some condition for large farms to be as productive as they can be, which means if large farms want to maximize productivity, all right, it's not about increasing productivity, it's about maximizing productivity. Their owners need to invest heavily in expensive machinery. Okay, look at the language, need to. Need to tells me that we are looking at a necessary condition, all right? And all these things I'm noticing because I am reading in small segments. All right, so I've read this full sentence and in my mind, I have simplified. All right, in order to achieve maximum production, a lot of money has to be put into machinery. Now, what should follow right on the heels of this thought is, okay, since it's a necessary condition, from this part, I can infer this. Since it's a necessary condition, it means productivity cannot be maximized without that expensive machinery. All right. So this is how we can infer at every step. Again, you might think this takes a lot of time. It doesn't. It occurs to you in a flash of a second if you train your mind to do that. Let's move on. This typically requires them another necessary requirement to go into considerable debt. Okay, so we are saying for expensive machinery, huge loans have to be taken. And right at the heels of this thought comes to my mind that farmers probably don't have enough money on their own to buy such machinery. That is why they have to take loans. All right. And interest on this debt is then a significant fixed cost. My. So if these huge loans have to be taken, then these owners have to bear the burden of a higher fixed cost. All right. So notice how I have analyzed sentence one and drawn an inference. Notice how I have broken down the second sentence into two segments and also drawn inferences along the way. Now that I have finished reading the first two sentences, I am going to correlate the two and ask myself, okay, why has the author given me these two sentences in this order? All right, so the author is telling us that in order to achieve maximum production, a lot of money has to be invested for this expensive machinery. Loans have to be taken, and for the loans, high fixed cost. Which means the author is trying to tell me that if these large farm owners want to achieve maximum productivity, they have to increase their fixed costs. So by correlating the first two sentences, see how I was able to draw an inference right away. You might think this is a very painful process. Guys, it is not. We often do it intuitively. This was a very simple question. You might have done it intuitively, but for harder questions, you actually have to follow this process. All right? Okay, let's read the last sentence. This high fixed cost makes those farmers vulnerable. Vulnerable means what? What does the language vulnerable mean? At risk. So we are saying that because of the high fixed cost, the farmers can face operating losses if the price of the farm products drop. All right. So we are saying if the price of the farm products drop, farmers can face operating losses, all because of the high fixed cost. Now, if I connect this inference, the one that I last drew, to this sentence, which is my sentence 3, ultimately, what am I going to conclude? If large farm owners want to maximize productivity, they have to take the risk of operating losses. That means if they want their farms to produce as much as those farms can produce, there will always be that risk, right? Do let me know, all of you out there, if this process is clear. Naman, I'll show you the question again. I'm sorry, I guess you might have joined late. So please let me know if this process of analysis is clear to all of you. Do let me know if this process of analysis is clear to all of you. Remember, this is a simple question, so it's very intuitive for you to go from A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E. But imagine this was a harder question and it wasn't as intuitive for you to understand what is given there. Therefore, you have to follow this process of simplifying information, correlating, simplifying, correlating, and finally arriving at the conclusion. Wonderful. Thank you, Pamela and Louis, for that corroboration. Those of you watching this, if you are enjoying the webinar so far, do hit the like button so that more and more of us can actually see this webinar. All right, let me get started with eliminating the answer choices. So here it goes. Let's read the question stem. The information above, that means this information, best supports which of the following inferences about the large farm. So the answer choices contain inferences and we have to identify which inference is true per the given data. So it's an inference question. How will I go about it? Watch me how I read the answer choices, because that's also very important. They means the large farms, can be highly productive. I'll stop here and I'll ask myself, okay, from the paragraph, can I infer that these large farms have the ability to be highly productive? Well, if their owners invest in heavy machinery, they can definitely maximize the productivity per the given data. So yes, this part can be definitely inferred. Without being profitable, can I infer this part? Is it possible that even though these large farms are highly productive, they are not profitable? Yes. When the prices of their products drop. If the prices drop, there is this chance of operating losses, and therefore this choice is definitely something that I can support from the information given above. That's a correct answer. Let's move to the next option and see. So until you rule out all the options for solid grounds of reasoning, your process is not complete. All right. They can be so highly productive that they drive down market prices. In real life, perhaps it is true that if the supply of a farm product increases suddenly, then the price in the market might go down. But from this paragraph, we cannot be sure if it is the farmers themselves or the large farms themselves that are driving down the market prices. So this could be a might be true option, but it is not a definitely true answer. All right, so this is not what we can infer. All right. They tend to be, now look at this language, tend. Tend comes from the word tendency. So they tend to be consistently profitable if their owners borrow at low interest rates. Now, the if clause in the answer choice should be considered as extra premise. Okay. This is extra premise. So this plus this extra premise, can you infer this part? So let's say if the interest owners are borrowing at low interest rate, because here we are just told that the interest is of significant fixed cost, right? This choice is adding additional information to that, saying that imagine that the interest rate is low, then what? Even if the interest rate is low, it would still be a significant fixed cost per the passage. And this significant fixed cost could still put the farmers at risk, okay, at risk if the prices of the products drop. So consistently profitable cannot be inferred even then. And therefore, this is out of scope. D, they respond to operating losses. Hold on. Is the passage talking about what the farmers would do if they actually faced operating losses? No. No response is given to the operating loss. So this choice is out of scope. E, they cannot be profitable. Cannot as in never, never. So this choice is saying these large farms can never be profitable if their owners depend on credit or loan. Well, one scenario is given to us when they cannot be profitable, but they will never be profitable. What if the prices don't drop? They could be profitable, right? So this is a very exaggerated, what we call hyperbolic choice, and therefore incorrect. All right. So I hope that's clear. Do we have any questions? Anyone? If you have any questions, do ask. And those of you who are interested in taking a closer look at our course, I'm going to quickly share the link to the free trial version of our course. It's there on your screens. The link to the free trial version of the course is there on your screens, guys. And if any of you wants to talk to our strategy experts, wants to discuss their issues that they are facing right now, I'm going to share another link where you can actually set up a free call with our strategy experts by booking a slot on this link. Let me just repost this. 1 second, all of you. Hold on a second. Okay, I think there's... Okay, there's the link which you can use to set up a call with our experts. So I'm going to now quickly bring on the next question. All right. The problem that most of you might have faced here, or you might face, okay, is that you don't follow a method. You're following you're focusing on time. You want to solve it quickly, but you try to crunch time by rushing through the stimulus, and that's the problem. So focus on the logic, focus on the correlation in the stimulus, and that's going to help you solve the problems. So accuracy is more important than timing. You will achieve timing, but first accuracy. Here's the next question that I said would be challenging you. So yes, let me just hide that, and I'm going to mute myself. Your time starts now. Please hold on to your answers. I'll tell you when to post it. Thank you for that. All right, you can start posting your answers now, all of you. Yes. Those of you who've finished solving this, you can start posting your answers. Okay, wonderful. I've got so many answers there. So let me just go through the Smriti says D, Ramakrishnan says A, Naman says E, Louis says A, Durga says D, non-existent, well, that's a name, A, Burundi says D, Rohit says E, Jatin says A or B, Nilanjan says E. So there's a lot, there's a lot of variety here. A seems to be one strong contender. Next is E, and we've got a few D's and one B as well. All right. So Let me start with my analysis. Now, again, remember, the point is not to see, oh, I got this question correct, I got that question correct. The point is to see, did I get it right the right way? If I've got it the right way, then I'm going to be able to apply the same way to other questions as well. Shelley says it's D. Okay, wonderful. Let's get started with the explanations. And let me mute my camera here and let's focus on the question at hand. So I'm going to start off with the first step. The first step is to analyze the stimulus. For a trade embargo, so now here are two things. One, you know the meaning of embargo. All right. Two, you don't know the meaning of embargo. All right. Remember, and this has been my experience as well. GMAT will never give you data that you cannot understand. There will be context to explain what that word embargo stands for. Only you have to be alert, vigilant enough to notice that the meaning is given there. So for now, let me tell you the meaning. A trade embargo is like a trade sanction or a trade restriction, all right? A trade limit or a trade, a simple word would be maybe ban. So for a trade ban against a particular country to succeed, all right, for trade embargo to take place, a high degree means a lot of, both, so there are two things, international accord and ability to prevent goods from entering or leaving that country. So in case you don't know what's a trade embargo, this part would tell you that embargo means total stopping of trade. All right, no goods will leave that country means no export, no goods will enter that country means no import. All right, in the context of trade. So trade embargo would mean total ban on trade. So the author here is saying that if the trade embargo against a country is to succeed, two things are necessary. This is the language here. One, a high degree of international accord. So what is that international accord? Simplify it always, high degree of international agreement, which means a lot of countries must agree, must be in agreement. And condition two given is there should be a high degree of ability to prevent goods from moving in or out, which means international trade against that country must be stopped. Now, because must be sustained is there, so we are given two necessary conditions. Remember, a necessary condition is something, it's a bare minimum requirement for the fulfillment, all right, for the occurrence of a result. Let's read further. A total blockade of Patria ports is necessary to an embargo. Okay, so now we're talking about a particular country probably called Patria. In case of Patria, there's another thing that is given here, another necessity. And that necessity is you have to block the ports of Patria completely. Now, here I'm correlating with the previous sentence. And I'm thinking this blocking of ports probably is to prevent this international trade. Maybe Patria's international trade takes place mostly through ports, via water, and that is why it's imperative it must be blocked. Okay, so there are three conditions that will have to be satisfied for trade embargo to work in case of Patria, if that is what the author is trying to tell us. Okay. But the next part says such a action would be likely to cause international discord over the embargo. So if one of these conditions, if met, is likely to make the other condition fail. So, the discord is going to break the accord here, correct? Because these are three necessary conditions, even if any one condition breaks down, the result will not take place, the outcome won't take place, which means we can infer that trade embargo in Patria may not be successful. All right. In meeting the third condition, the first condition will be broken. Therefore, trade embargo against Patria may not be successful. Let me know if this is clear to all of you. Yes, please let me know, guys, if this is clear to all of you. It's imperative that you read the stimulus in this way so that you do come to a certain understanding at the end of the paragraph. Of course, that particular understanding may not always be part of the answer choices, but it is good to have an understanding of what the author is trying to tell us. Okay, let's now move to the answer choices. The claims above, if true, most strongly support which of the following conclusions? It's an inference question again. The balance of opinion, and I'm thinking, hold on, does the paragraph talk about any balance of opinion? Well, remember, there's a discord that we are talking about. Now, a discord means there would be some countries which would agree and some which would disagree. That so a discord means there will be agreement and disagreement. All right. And this choice is, so this is the balance of opinion, means plus is agree, minus is disagree. So balance of opinion is definitely there. Is likely to favor Patria in the event of blockade. Hold on. This balance, will it tilt in favor of Patria? I'm thinking. Can I say that? Well, I don't know how many will agree. If more people agree over the discord, then it will tilt against Patria. If more countries disagree with the embargo, it will tilt in favor of Patria. So I cannot infer A. A lot of you chose A. Is this clear why A is not the answer? All of you, please let me know, because a lot of you chose A. Is it clear to all of you why A is not the answer? Great. Let's move to the next option. As long as, now as long as is like saying the only thing that matters. Okay? As long as is a phrase which is saying, okay, this is sufficient. The only thing that matters. What is the only thing that matters? As long as international opinion is unanimously against Patria. Unanimous means this is satisfying the high degree of accord. So this is fine. But do we only need high degree of accord for a trade embargo to succeed? No. Okay, this is not the only condition. This is not the only thing that matters. And therefore, this is out of scope. This is incorrect. Okay. Let's move to C. A naval blockade of Patria's port. Now I would stop and ask myself, well, no naval blockade is mentioned. All right, we are blocking the ports. Let's assume for the moment that the Navy will be called in to block the ports. But would that ensure that no goods enter or leave Patria? What if there are some, air routes or land routes through which the goods can enter or leave Patria? So we cannot say, we do not know for sure that the blockade of the port is going to make sure that nothing leaves or enters Patria. So this is again out of scope. D matches with what we thought, right? Trade embargo in Patria is likely to fail. So D is the correct answer. All right. E, one or two of you marked E also as the answer. Let's see what it says. For a blockade of Patria's ports to be successful. Now, is there any condition given for blocking the ports? Like, is there any condition that has to be satisfied for blocking the ports? No. And definitely there is, must be unanimous is not given anywhere. It's just high degree of opinion. So this is also out of scope and incorrect. Do let me know if this is clear to all of you so that we can next. Louis, yes, I do get what you're saying. It doesn't need to have a high degree. So this is for which option are you saying, Louis? What did you mark? Let me just, you marked A. Okay. So the point is, it casts a doubt, Louis. All right. If it's going to cause a discord, now whether the discord is going to disrupt the accord totally or not, we are not very sure. All right. But we can definitely say that it is going to disrupt to a certain extent. And that is why they have used the word likely, likely. Look at the correct answer, likely. Look at the last sentence, likely cause a discord. So we have to stay with that language. Is that okay, Louis? Is it clear? So all of you watching this webinar out there, if you are finding this webinar helpful, do hit the like button. The more number of likes that you hit, that's really going to help more and more people view this and help them as well. You're welcome, Louise. So that was all about how to analyze the stimulus properly so that you can rule out the options immediately. You don't have to go back and forth, up and down, and waste time. The second most important skill is to be able to spot assumptions, right? Here's the first question that I want you people to solve. And I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to look at this question. Hold on to your answers. I'll tell you when to post them. Thank you. All right, you can start posting your answers. Okay, so Jatin says it's D. Theothau says it's D. Rohit says B. King says E. Okay, can I have some more answers? I know all of you, there are a lot of you out there solving this question. I've got another D. Louis says A. Ayan says E. So A, E, D, Day says A. Okay, so except for C, all options are in the running. Okay. Let's see what's the correct answer. Yes, any more answers out there? All right, let's see what's the correct answer. So I'm just going to stop my camera and let's focus on the question. Once again, analyzing the stimulus is very, very important. Okay. Again, we are going to follow the same process that we followed for analyzing the stimulus for the earlier two questions. Understand what is being said, simplify, correlate. Researchers have found something. What have they found? This when is very important. Huh? When very overweight people, let's give that a term, VOP, all right? When very overweight people, all right, who tend to have relatively low metabolic rates. When we say relatively, relative to whom? Relative to people who are not very overweight. Okay. So these people always in general have low metabolic rates. So when the very overweight people lose weight, look at this, lose is a verb here. So when very overweight people lose weight, primarily through dieting, so we're not talking about losing weight through any other method, but through dieting, their metabolism generally remain unchanged. So the fact that is given to us is very fat people have low MR, and when they lose weight through dieting, their MR remains the same. That means remains low. They will thus burn. Okay, so this thus is significant. It's relating the previous sentence information as the cause. So because their metabolism remains unchanged, they will burn fewer calories at new weight than do people whose weight is normally at that level. So from this sentence, okay, we can infer that the metabolism is responsible for how many calories you can burn. All right. And the weight is also important in how many calories you burn, because they are burning fewer calories at new weight than people who are normally at that level. So if a 100-kilo person becomes 60, and if a person who was 60 is at 60, this person is going to burn fewer calories. Why? Because of the low metabolic rate, which means because this person probably has a higher metabolic rate, this person is going to burn more calories even at the same weight. All right. So that's that. Such newly thin person. Okay, now we have another category. The very overweight people who lost weight and became newly thin will therefore ultimately regain weight until their body size again matches their metabolic rate. What that means is, let's say at 100, their MR was, let's say, X. Now we know that at 60 also it remains X. And now the conclusion is saying they will regain weight until it again matches the body weight. So that means they will get back all the weight that they lost. That's the conclusion. So people who have lost weight will again put on weight. All right. Clear? Now, the best way to pre-think for assumption questions is to understand what is your scope of conclusion. All right. An assumption is that necessary piece of information which is required for the conclusion to take place. So for people who have lost weight, something has to happen for them to put back all that weight. What has to happen? That is what we have to find out. So set the scope. Set the scope for yourself so that you can rule out choices by saying this is out of scope. What is the scope? Any new information that shows people who have lost weight will put on that weight again. This is my scope. Okay. In fact, one good way of doing this is ask questions. Okay. So We know that at the new weight, the newly thin people burn fewer calories. You can ask, do we know how much they eat? They burn this much. How much do they take in? We don't know. Do we know whether after losing weight they will do anything to keep off their weight, say exercise or anything? We don't know that, right? So when the author says that people who have lost weight will again put on weight, the author has thought that they will not eat fewer calories, okay? So they will burn fewer calories and they will eat more calories. And the author has assumed that these newly thin people are not going to do anything else to avoid putting back the lost weight, right? Clear? So one simple way would be, I'm just going to show you that as well. Let's say here we have any new information that shows, okay, you can ask these two questions: how or why people who have lost weight will put on that weight again. And you can think of common sense answers. So common sense would say they will put on weight because they will eat more, or they will stop diet that they were following. Another common sense would be, let's say they won't exercise to maintain lost weight. And this setting this question gives you a direction. Okay, so that's the best way to spot assumptions. Ask that question, how or why. So one stop, so that's by asking that how or why you can understand, okay, they're going to burn fewer. How much are they going to intake? All right, they lost weight through dieting. What if they started exercise also? So you're looking at these small missing pieces of information. Let's now eliminate the choices. What does A say? A lot of you chose A, huh? The metabolisms of people who are usually not overweight. Now, this is not the category that we are talking about. We are talking about metabolisms of newly thin people. However, let me read on to make sure I don't miss anything in this choice. The metabolism of not overweight people are much more able to vary than the metabolisms of people who have been very overweight. What this choice means is metabolism of very overweight people does not vary, correct? And this we already know. I mean, more than out of scope, I would say this is repetition of information. We already know that they have relatively low metabolic rates. We already know the metabolism of these very overweight people remains unchanged. So this choice gives us no new information and therefore is incorrect. Since some of you did mark A as the correct answer, is it clear why A is not the answer? Yes, is it clear why A is not the answer? Please let me know, guys. Okay, thank you, thank you. All right. So we have to be careful when we are reading the answer choice. We have to understand the meaning of the answer choice. We have to keep a sharp lookout for any repetitive information because assumptions require you to come up with new information. All right, let's move forward. The amount of calories that a person, now a person, is it a very overweight person that we're talking about, or is this generic information applicable to a normal person? So that's a red flag for me for this option. The amount of calories that a person usually burns in a day. Remember, we already know that a very overweight people who has lost weight will burn significantly fewer calories. What a general person burns in a day, we don't know that. And do we care for that? Not really, right? But let's read on. The amount of calories that a person usually burns in a day is determined more by the amount that is consumed. Now, we don't know what is consumed in the passage than by the current weight of the individual. See, the current weight also matters, right? In the passage, we are told that very overweight people, after losing weight, will burn fewer calories at new weight. So, B is definitely out of scope. It's talking very generically about a person and about the usual consumption, the usual burning of calories. So, B is out. Researchers have not yet determined whether metabolic rates of formerly very overweight individuals. So, formerly very overweight individuals refers to newly thin people. So, researchers have not yet been able to determine whether the metabolic rate of newly thin people can be speeded up or not by chemical agents. Chemical agents out of scope. That's totally irrelevant, not even out of scope. Because of the constancy of their metabolic rates. Whose metabolic rates are constant? People who are at their usual weight. So we are not talking about these people, right? These are the normal people. So these people have as much difficulty gaining weight as they do losing weight. Does not tell us why the newly thin people will regain weight. So D is also irrelevant. That leaves us with E. Now, a very good way to choose answers on hard questions is also to be able to successfully rule out 4 options. Whatever you're left with, even if you can't explain why it is the correct answer, has to be chosen in the interest of time. Okay, let's read E. Relatively few. What does relatively few mean? Relatively few means hardly any. Okay. Very overweight people who have dieted down to a new weight. So we are talking about hardly any newly thin people tend to continue to consume. We are saying continue to eat substantially fewer calories. Let me just use the word less for the moment. Than do people whose normal weight is at that level. Than normal people eat. So hardly any newly thin person continues to eat less. If you translate this sentence, it means most newly thin people eat more. If they eat more, then they will regain weight, and therefore E is the correct answer. So reading answer choices properly is also very important. I think just 1 or 2 of you got that right. So no, 3 of you mark E. I mean, those of you who've told me the answer, of those 3 marked E, and definitely is the answer. So do let me know if the explanation is clear to all of you so that we can move to our next question. Yes, are we all clear? It would be lovely to get a few more responses. And those of you watching the webinar, do hit the like button if you are enjoying this webinar, if you are finding the webinar useful. Let me also take this opportunity to quickly share a couple of links. I'm sharing a link for those of you who are interested in talking to our strategy experts to solve their issues. If you are just beginning your prep, or you're stuck with your prep, or you want to discuss your ESR and want to know the way ahead, you can definitely use that link. Iron, using negation makes sense if you are left with 2 options, both supporting the conclusion on an assumption question. Okay, you can use the negation then. But to try negation for every choice is going to be a very time consuming process. you just have 2 minutes to solve a question. In that 2 minutes, reading the stimulus carefully is anyways important, because without that, even the negation cannot be put into effect. All right. And I've tried this, tried using the negation against every option. It's just too time consuming. Some of these options are so useless, like you don't even need to waste time putting the negation there. But yes, if you are left with two options, both supporting the conclusion, both looking as if it's going in the same direction as the conclusion, then you can try the negation to check out whether that's which of the two options is the correct answer. Okay. So yes, let me bring the next question up. And I hope I have answered your question clearly. All right. Here comes the next question. So again, while you solve this, please hold on to those of you who finish solving this quickly, please hold on to your answers. I'll tell you when to post it. Thank you. Okay, please start posting your answers. You can start posting your answers if you have it ready. This is an interesting question, and Ayan, I will resolve the question that you raised. We'll resolve that here. So Ramakrishnan says it's C. Idris says it's D. Tran says it's D. Let's see. I'll wait for a few more answers. Come on, guys. Your answers energize me. I feel that there are people who are listening to me, who are interacting with me. I've got another D from non-existent. I wonder why you have kept that name. Saurav says C. Okay, that's nice. So C, D are in the running, and we will see what is the correct answer. Yes, Ayan, what do you think is the answer? Day, Ayan, Louis, then Burundi, Rohit, Jatin, Shelly, Nilanjan, Durga, Naman, Smriti. Okay, so I guess you are still solving. Okay, let me show you what we could have done here. Louis says A, Shelly says C. Okay, thank you so much, all of you. Let's get started with the analysis. All right. A proposed change to federal income tax laws. So, proposed change means it hasn't been changed yet. There is a proposal to do something. To do what? To change something in the income tax laws. That change would eliminate, that means remove completely, deductions from taxable income for donations a taxpayer has made to charitable and educational institutions. Long sentence. What we are saying is, per a new proposal, there are changes going to be made to this tax laws, and wealthy individuals, sorry, and then people who were getting deductions for the donations they were making to charitable institutions, they will not get it anymore. Okay? If this change were adopted, wealthy individuals would no longer be permitted such deductions. That means wealthy individuals, if they make donations after this change is adopted, then for those donations, they are not going to get any exemption from tax. All right, which means we can infer that their taxable income is definitely going to increase. The therefore is the conclusion marker. Here we have it that many, now many in CR means at least one, could be any number up to 99 if it's a group of 100. 1 minute, guys. Just a moment, guys. Give me a moment. Okay, just needed a sip of water there. So the conclusion is many means many in CR is equivalent to some. Some means at least one, okay, and could be more. So we are saying some of these institutions would have to reduce their work and some would have to close their doors. That's the conclusion here. Scope is why or how some charitable and educational institutions would have to reduce services, and why would some have to close their doors. This is what I've asked you to set, right? Now, what's the common sense answer, right? What will be the common sense answer to this question, guys? Can you tell me what is the common sense answer to this question? Why would the charitable institutions have to reduce work? Why would they have to close their doors? What would be the common sense answer to this? If you are running, a charitable institution, why would you have to reduce work? Ramakrishnan, the answer is even simpler. Very good, non-existent. They won't have enough funding. So the point here is they won't have enough funding, right? If they don't have enough funding, they will have to definitely reduce services. And if the shortage is severe, they will also have to close the doors. If you further ask the question, why would they not have enough funding? So see how from one thought you can, so from this question came this answer. And again, if I raise the question, why would they not have enough funding? Because some wealthy people won't donate as usual. The point is, I'm keeping the word some because the conclusion is also about some. And these are small, small things that are very important. Why would these wealthy people not donate as usual? As Ramakrishnan put it, they were donating only for the benefit of the deduction. So, by asking this one question on the scope, all right, I came up with assumption 1, assumption 2, assumption 3. You don't have to come up with so many assumptions in the exam, but developing this process of thinking is really going to make you sharp on your feet. All right. Let's move to the options now. So I think that was clear to all. Thank you. So Ramakrishnan, non-existent, and Tran, all of you were correct. All of you are correct, rather. Now let's see which options are going to give us that information. So I'm going to keep the scope in my view, right? Money contributed by individuals who make their donation because of provision in the federal tax laws means this implies, okay, they will stop donating, correct? Because this portion in the bracket implies that these individuals are the type who will stop donating once the provision is gone. So money contributed by such individuals provides the only source of funding. If it's the only source and if they stop funding, definitely funding will reduce. So this is within scope. I'm going to keep this on hold. A is within scope. It's telling me funding will stop, right? It's telling me funding will stop. So let me write this. Because if this is the only money, if this is the only source, then funding will stop. And if funding will stop, they will also, the institutions will have to stop work. So A is on hold. Primary reason for not adopting the proposed change. Now, are we talking about a scenario where we are not going to adopt the proposed change? No. We are going ahead with the idea that if the change were adopted. So B is anyways out of scope. I'm not going to waste time on it further. Without incentives offered by federal income tax laws, at least some wealthy individuals would not donate as much money. So if some wealthy individuals won't donate as much money, this means funding will reduce. See the difference, huh? One says funding will stop, one says funding will reduce, but in both cases, they are supporting my conclusion that these institutions would have to reduce service, would have to close doors. So C is also on hold. Wealthy individuals who donate money, I'm reading D, are the only individuals who donate money, but this does not tell us they will stop or not. It's just saying they are the only ones who donate money. So this is out of scope. Income tax laws should be changed to make donations the only permissible deductions. What changes should be made is not the point that we are discussing here. Our conclusion is concerned with why charitable and educational institutions would have to reduce services. So this is also out of scope, out. Now, Ayan, this is a situation where you can do two things. One is you can simply ask yourself, does the funding need to reduce minimum requirement? Because assumption is a necessary condition, a minimum requirement. So you could ask, does the funding need to stop completely, or is it sufficient for the funding to reduce? Okay, this is one way of answering this. The other is negation. Let's try the negation. Let's negate the first choice, A. How to negate it? Always negate the main verb. Main verb is provides. So I'm saying wealthy individuals are not the only individual source of funding, right? If I negate A, it will say money contributed by these individuals does not provide the only source of funding, right? Now, if it is not the only source of funding, that means that, let's say, for example, there are two sources. After negation, there are two sources, wealthy individuals and other sources. Now, this choice says who make the donation because of provision. That means they will stop, one source will stop. If one source will stop, funding will still reduce. And if funding still reduces, my conclusion will stand. Okay? The charitable institutions will still have to reduce services because funding will reduce, even if they have other sources. So, A is not a necessary condition. All right? I don't need funding to stop completely. C, on the other hand, if I negate C, it means no wealthy individuals is going to stop donating. All right? It would mean that wealthy individuals would continue to donate, and therefore that would break my conclusion. And that is how C is the correct answer. Is this clear to all of you? Is this clear? The negation, is it clear, Ayan? So these circumstances, you try the negation, otherwise not. Do hit the like button if you're enjoying the webinar, if you're enjoying the process, if this is helpful to you. And with that, let me bring up the last question of the evening. Here it is. Go ahead, enjoy this. All of you are welcome. Thank you so much for participating. So this is the last question. Let's get done with this. Go ahead with this. Guys, please hold on to your answers. I'll tell you when to post. Everybody should have a fair chance at the answer. Okay, thank you. All right. Sorry, I just went for a sip of water. I was really having a problem with my throat. So, yes, you can start posting your answers now. Thank you for holding on to your answers. All right, let me see. I've got, so Tran says 2, Day says A, Ayan says C, Ramakrishnan says B. No, Ramakrishnan's answer is not there. Brundi says B. Nilanjan says C, non-existent C, Ramakrishnan B, Idris A. So A, B, C. Okay. A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. Shelly A. It's a very interesting question, guys. Okay. And a lot of these questions are also to do with, human behavior. All right. So we want to see, I mean, everybody seems to be going for A or B or C. All right. Let's see why there is so much of confusion. So thank you guys. If you're finding this webinar useful, do hit the like button. Okay, let me get started with the explanation. Here we go. Thank you, Louis, for your answer. Louis says it's C. Okay. Simple, very simple stimulus if you really go for it. Exports of US wood pulp will rise considerably during this year. So that's a prediction, definitely not a fact, and could be the conclusion of the paragraph, but we'll wait for that. The reason for the rise is, okay, so this is the supporting reasoning being given for this prediction. Okay. The reason is that the falling value of the dollar. So from this we can understand that currently the value of dollar is falling will make it cheaper for paper manufacturers in Japan and Western Europe to buy American wood pulp than to get it from any other source. So what we are told here is that dollar value is falling. That makes American wood pulp the cheapest for Japanese and Western Europe paper manufacturers. They won't get wood pulp as cheap as they would from anywhere else as they would get it from the US. Okay. And because of that, the author believes that US wood pulp exports are going to rise a lot. It's not just increase, but increase a lot. Okay. So our scope is what is required. Okay. What is required for the US exports of wood pulp to rise considerably during this year? Now, if we ask a simple question, let me ask it here only, wait. If we ask a simple question, why or how? Okay. Now, one answer is already given, cheap. Okay, so we are not going to use that as our assumption. Cheapest wood pulp, that's already given. All right. How else is this going to increase? So if US, all right, produces a lot of wood pulp, okay, number one. Second is, if there is a huge demand in Japan and Western Europe, most of all, if the Japanese and the Western European paper manufacturers decide to buy from US, then US wood pulp exports will increase considerably. So with that, let's kind of try to spot our missing links. So currently, we don't know whether America will be able to produce enough wood pulp to increase exports. Let's say the Japanese paper manufacturers are willing to buy it, all right, but does US have that much of wood pulp to sell? We don't know that. We also don't know whether there is enough demand in Japan and European buyers to buy from Americans. Maybe they're already buying as much as they need. Maybe there's no need to buy more. We don't know that. We don't know if American wood pulp is going to suit the needs of the Japanese and the European buyers. All right, we don't know that. So these assumptions have been made. It has been assumed that American paper manufacturers' demand is not going to exceed so much that the domestic consumption of American wood pulp will increase, which will not leave much for exports. Similarly, we have assumed that the Japanese and European manufacturers are not already buying as much American wood pulp as they needed. And of course, there is no quality issue with the American wood pulp. There is no limitation in the American wood pulp that would prevent the Japanese from buying it. So these are the thought processes. Whenever you think, there's a tip here. Whenever you are presented with a question on exports and imports, now there are a couple of things that you can think of. You can think of demand in the importing country, demand in the exporting country. You can think of supply from the exporting country. You can think of price. You can think of substitutions. There are some common things that you can think of. Let's start with our elimination process. Factory output of paper products in Japan and Western Europe will increase sharply during this year. If the factory output of paper products increases sharply, then demand for wood pulp will also increase. So this is definitely going in favor of our conclusion, right? It's going in favor of this. Let's keep A on hold. The quality of wood pulp produced in US would be adequate. Adequate means sufficient for the purpose. If it is sufficient, then definitely they are going to buy from it. So B is also on hold. Paper manufacturers in Japan and Western Europe would prefer to use wood pulp produced in US if cost were not a factor. Well, cost is not a factor, right? We already know from this paragraph that cost is not a factor. American wood pulp is the cheapest for the Japanese buyers, right? So here we are talking about preference, here we are talking about quality, adequate, and here we are talking about will increase sharply. Ask yourself which of these three is necessary for this. But before that, let's rule out D&E. It's easier to rule out D&E. Demand for paper products made in Japan and Western Europe will not increase. If it doesn't increase, this is more like a weak now. Production of wood pulp by US companies will not increase. They can't export more than. So out of A, B, and C, please tell me which of these three, this, and this, is necessary for this. Go ahead. All of you, I'll wait for your answer. What is necessary? You imagine you're a Japanese paper manufacturer, you're buying from US. Is your preference necessary? Is your sufficient quality necessary? Or does the demand have to increase sharply? I mean, without the demand increasing sharply, with a slight increase in demand also, you might be able to purchase from US, right? So what is most important? What is necessary? Good. Saurav says quality. Ramakrishnan says quality. See, if the quality is not even adequate, you are not going to buy, right? You're not going to buy. Absolutely, Rohit. So one of the best ways of identifying assumption is to ask that question. What is necessary? See, if I negate A, right? A says will not increase sharply. Now, will not increase sharply means it could remain the same or it could increase slightly, right? Even if the demand remains the same and the Japanese and Western European buyers decide that they would like to buy from US because US wood pulp is cheapest, then also the exports will rise considerably. So this is not necessary. This is not necessary, okay? But if the quality of wood pulp is not adequate, that means it is not even sufficient, then why would the Japanese buy from the US? So this is definitely necessary. Even if the Japanese don't prefer buying the US, let's say they don't like the US and they don't want to buy from them, but because US wood pulp is the cheapest, they might still buy. So preference is also not a necessary condition for the conclusion. So that's that, guys. What have we learned today? What we have understood is you need to focus on the logical aspect of the question at hand. It's a common sense scenario. Read the stimulus carefully and correctly so that you have ample ammunition to rule out options. All right? If you are reading carefully, you have every element etched in your mind. And when you're looking at options, you can remember those elements to eliminate your choices. All right. So I hope you found the webinar helpful, guys. Here's where you can reach out to us. And for those of you who want to talk to our experts, want to discuss their issues with our experts, I'll put up the link once more. Do let me know what topics you would like to see webinars in future from us. And definitely let me know if today's webinar helped. Thank you, all of you, for being such an amazing, interactive, obedient audience. Thank you very much. So do let me know what topics you would like to see webinars on in future. All the best, Ramakrishnan. GFE, did you mean GRE? All the very best. I think you are on the right track. Just make sure that those teeny weeny bits sometimes that you miss, you don't do that. But I'm pretty confident you're going to get what you want. You're welcome. Oh, okay, you're giving GFE. My bad. Sorry. So all the very, very, very best to all of you preparing out there. Work hard, study hard, stay focused. Really, it's all about focus and about common sense. Critical reasoning is about common sense. You don't have to pre-think a lot. You just have to understand the given scenario, think along the lines of common sense and get your answers. So thank you, guys, all of you. Take care, all the very best, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye. Do hit the like button if you found the webinar useful. Bye. I will do so, Idris. Yes, I will. Yes, Smriti. Thank you so much.